Lutris. Let's put it through its paces.
March 2026. The open source game manager that has been part of the Linux gaming ecosystem since 2009 is generating controversy over undisclosed code written with artificial intelligence assistance. The developer initially removed references to it. The objection was not about the assistance, it was about the hiding. The complaint record tells a different story. March 2024. A user installs a major publisher's application through the launcher. The installer completes without an error message. The application is broken. The script silently ignored errors. The user found out when they tried to launch a game. Install scripts that report success while producing broken setups. Compatibility layer runners that disappear after unrelated changes. Configurations that work until they do not and offer no path back. The Power User tool for Linux gaming, now partly built by an assistant the developer initially did not want to disclose. Mathieu Commandant switched to an alternative operating system in 2009 and wanted to play his games. The guides available were fractured, distro-specific, and often outdated. Installing a game designed for a different operating system through a compatibility layer required hunting for the right version, the right settings, the right configuration, and starting over from scratch every time. His solution was a centralized launcher that held all of that configuration in one place. The project was initially named after a popular role-playing game and first released publicly in November 2009. The most distinctive innovation was the community install script. Instead of one person figuring out how to make a game run and posting instructions to a forum, the solution could be submitted as an executable script to a shared database. Any user could run it. The script automated the environment creation, the compatibility layer selection, the dependency installation, and the game-specific fixes. The community's knowledge became executable. The project describes itself not as a launcher, but as a video game preservation platform, which is significant. The goal is not just to play current games, but to keep older and unusual titles playable across time and across distributions. The install script ecosystem is preservation infrastructure, accumulated knowledge about how to run games that would otherwise require extensive per-user research. The supported sources cover the major stores, several publisher-specific clients, independent platforms, and custom sources. The compatibility layer options include multiple versions, translation layers, emulators for legacy systems, and console emulators added in the most recent releases. The silent install failure is the defining problem. The install script runs to completion. No error message is displayed. The application appears to be installed. It is not, or rather, it is installed in a broken state that the script did not detect because it was configured to continue rather than abort when a step failed. The user sees installation complete. They try to launch the game. It does not work. There is no clear indication of where the failure occurred during installation. However, the runner churn adds a second failure dimension. In October 2024, a compatibility layer runner disappeared from the launcher's available list after an unrelated tool was uninstalled from the system. Games that had been working stopped launching. The runner the configuration pointed to was no longer discoverable. In May 2025, changing a compatibility layer runner to fix one problem broke a publisher's application permanently. Even after the user switched the runner back to the original version, the application remained broken. The runner change had modified something in the environment that did not revert. In February 2025, an installer for a different publisher's client hung at 45% after working for months. In December 2023, a popular multiplayer title became stuck creating its environment and never progressed. In September 2025, a community member posted that they were exhausted by the accumulated maintenance cost. The frustration was not about a single incident. It was about the ongoing requirement to reconfigure, troubleshoot, and repair setups that break when underlying components change. For users who want to play games rather than configure software, that cost eventually becomes too high. The sustainability question is visible in the numbers. In 2024, donation support fell by approximately 40% compared to earlier years. For a project whose development pace depends directly on the creator's ability to fund his time, that decline is a material constraint. In September 2024, Commandant joined a company building a commercial gaming operating system. His time is now divided between the open source project, funded by donations, and the commercial project funded by employment. The practical effect is that updates may take longer, and the project's long-term trajectory depends on whether the commercial employer's incentives align with the community's direction. The versions released in February 2026 added support for a major compatibility runtime from the dominant platform, along with console emulation runners. The project is actively maintained. The development pace has not stopped, but the question the community is asking is whether the pace is sufficient for a tool that breaks when external components change and requires timely fixes to remain usable. The position the tool occupies has narrowed as the compatibility layer built into the dominant platform has improved. Games that once required specific compatibility layer configurations and install scripts now run through the dominant platform's built-in compatibility without any additional tool. The previous tool in this comparison handles the major third-party stores more cleanly with less configuration. What remains for Lutris is everything those two do not cover. Publisher-specific clients that only run through a compatibility layer, emulation, unusual installers, specific compatibility layer configurations that the dominant platform does not support. The position is narrower than it was in 2019. It is still irreplaceable for the users who need it. If the games you want to play on the alternative operating system are covered by the dominant platform's built-in compatibility layer, use that. If your libraries from other stores are covered by the adapter tool in this comparison, use that. Both options are simpler, more reliable, and require less ongoing maintenance. Lutris is the tool for everything those two do not cover. Publisher clients that only run through a compatibility layer, legacy titles that need specific environment configurations, console emulation through a unified interface, install scripts that encode the community's accumulated knowledge of how to make difficult games run, accept the silent install failure as the defining risk. When an installer reports success, verify that the application actually works before assuming the setup is complete. Accept that compatibility layer configurations can break when unrelated system changes occur, and that the broken state may not be reversible by simply changing the configuration back. Accept that the debugging process requires expertise with the underlying operating system, and that error messages may not provide sufficient information to diagnose the problem without consulting community forums and issue trackers. The sustainability question is real. A 40% decline in donation support, the creator's time divided with a commercial employer, the controversy over undisclosed artificial intelligence assistance in the codebase. The open source license means the project can be forked if the original development slows, but a fork without the community install script ecosystem loses the feature that makes Lutris distinctive. The scripts are the project's most valuable asset, and they depend on continued community contribution and curation to remain current. The project describes itself as a video game preservation platform. That description is the most accurate framing of what Lutris provides. Not a launcher in the way the other tools in this comparison are launchers. A living archive of how to make games run on an operating system they were not designed for. The archive requires maintenance. The maintenance requires funding and motivation. The funding has declined. The motivation is split between the open source project and a commercial employer. The archive is still the most comprehensive collection of executable gaming knowledge available on any operating system. Whether it remains maintained at the level its users need depends on the same community that objected to the undisclosed code contributions continuing to support the project with the attention and funding it requires to keep the archive current.